Hello, I'm Dr. David Musnick, and this is the Dr. M Experience podcast. Today's episode is going to be on eating for your brain, eating for brain sharpness, eating for brain health, eating after a concussion. How do we eat for any type of neurological condition? And just the disclaimers here, I'm not advising you. If you're not my patient, this is all general information from many, many, many years of experience and many, many patients, and my own research on healing the brain after concussion and healing the nervous system with a functional neurology approach. Be sure and look at our affiliates page because we have a lot of brain-based information. And we're going to have a place where you could get us your email so you could have the 4-page handout on the brain diet. Okay. Remember, this is a podcast of solid information, 17 to 20 minutes. And so we go fast, we go quick, we got a lot of information here. Okay, so what are some of the principles? It's always good, instead of saying eat this and eat that, let's have some principles here. In the last episode, or if you're not following these, one by one, we have an episode on, the brain on fire, brain inflammation, neural inflammation. Make sure you watch that episode before this one, or at least watch it sometime. So here's the deal. I talked about neural inflammation and the concept that the M1 microglial cells were very inflammatory. If they're very inflammatory, they can start destroying neurons. They can destroy synaptic networks. So we do not want them staying in the M1 phase. We want them shifting to the M2 phase, which is anti-inflammatory, and it's basically promoting growth factors. Okay. So what's some of the information on, how to achieve this shift? I talked about this in the other episode, but one of them is with Apigenin. And Apigenin is a flavonoid that, if there's enough of it in the region of the brain, it will promote the shift from the M1 inflammatory phase that doesn't produce growth factors to the M2 phase, where these little microglial cells will be in a much better phase, which we call morphology. Okay. So one thing, get Apigenin in your diet. How to do it? The best way to do it is with parsley. How do you get parsley in your diet? One, make a parsley smoothie with half a head of parsley, not the stems, but the leaves, flat parsley. Mix it in the blender with wild frozen blueberries. And why wild frozen blueberries? Well, do an experiment. Take a regular frozen blueberry, organic frozen blueberry in one hand, and put a wild frozen blueberry on the other hand. Let them melt a little bit and see which one leaves a much more purple stain on your hand. It's going to be the wild blueberry. Why? Because that wild blueberry has been exposed to the elements of nature, and it's had to create a lot more purple pigment to protect itself. But it turns out that that purple pigment is really beneficial for a person's brain. Okay. So we're going to use like a half cup of those in with a half a head of parsley. And then you can put things to flavor it, like half a banana or a whole banana. And you're not going to use cow dairy. And I'll go into that in a second. But you put a protein powder in there, like a vegan protein powder, no chocolate. I'm going to talk about this. But because chocolate has heavy metals, if you're trying to heal your nervous system, your brain, or help somebody else do this, we're going to be avoiding chocolate as much as possible. Okay? So one of the concepts of healing the brain is help the microglial cells by how the person eats. Okay? Now, let's talk about this business about why someone trying to heal the brain, especially after concussion, might want to avoid cow dairy and gluten. So gliadin from gluten can cross-react with some tissues in the brain, including myelin basic protein and something called synapsin, and even cerebellar tissue in the balance center of the brain. And because it can cross-react like that, then if you eat gluten, then the immune system could go after parts of the brain, which we don't want. And then there's a milk protein called milk butyrophilin, can interact with cerebellar tissue. So that could mean you eat milk products or dairy products and your balance could be off, or you could get inflammation in the cerebellum, or worse, develop antibodies to the cerebellum. And also dairy casein with synuclein and oligodendrocytes. So these, both dairy and gluten, are no-nos for someone recovering from a concussion or that wants to be in a really good diet, trying to heal their brain for Parkinson's, MS, just a lot of neurological conditions. Now, the other thing is, if there's a leaky blood-brain barrier, lots of things could get into the brain that shouldn't get into the brain. So we don't want to compromise things in the brain. It's going to be a gluten and dairy-free diet. Now, what else about this diet do we want to know? One of the big deals is it's going to be rich in choline, that begins with a C. Choline helps make up neurological membranes. And, we have another podcast about membranes and something called neuroplasticity. But when you're trying to rehabilitate neurological membranes, it's kind of a formula of ingredients. And one of them is choline. And one of them is the omega-3s and DHA. And we might also have the plasmalogens in that mix. Now, I want to tell you about the sources of choline. But you want to make sure that the person healing gets about 400 milligrams of choline a day or more. You can't overdo it on choline, okay? Best way is pasture-raised, organic-fed chicken eggs. 3 eggs a day. And don't brown the eggs. I'll go into this when I talk about AGEs, advanced glycosylated end products. Don't brown the eggs, okay? What else has choline? Chicken, turkey, salmon, broccoli, and quinoa. But I think it's the easiest to get it from the eggs. Can you raise your cholesterol too much with eggs? Very unlikely. So, of course, consult your physician. If you've got a big cholesterol problem and you're thinking about eating 3 eggs a day, but there's been a lot of studies that have shown that that's not really a common problem. Okay. When we talked in the podcast about brain inflammation, we talked about the NRF2 gene. We want to activate it. What happens when you do that? You get the brain's anti-inflammatory molecules, natural anti-inflammatory molecules, and you get the brain's natural antioxidants. So what do you want to eat or take in your diet to do that? Broccoli sprouts. And I've said at other times, make sure you either grow your own broccoli sprouts in a glass container, or you make sure that who's ever growing broccoli sprouts uses filtered water, not tap water. And you'd be surprised how many places you're going to buy sprouts that the person who makes the sprouts for that grocery store is using tap water. So it's okay to ask. If they don't know, you can call the company. Are you using tap water or filtered water? Okay. Grow your own. Next, green tea. Organic green tea can be a very good idea. It's a double tasker. It helps prevent cancer, and it's very good for activating NRF2. It's anti-inflammatory. And turmeric. Now, how do you get turmeric in your diet? Well, you can use it as a spice, or you can take it as a supplement. I do recommend taking it as a supplement. Okay, and one of the tasty ways to get turmeric also is there is a company called Humann, Humann, and they've got turmeric chews. So that's one way to get it. Look at our affiliates page for that. And each one of them is about 300 milligrams of highly absorbable turmeric. Another way to get it is with turmeric tea. And a lot of companies like FGO, which is Fine Great Origins from Seattle, have a turmeric ginger tea. So that's another way to get it. So those are the best ways to get it from food. If you take a DHA supplement, it will also stimulate NRF2. Okay, now I want to tell you how to make a brain healthy pesto. If you take organic olive oil and then in your pesto maker, you mix cilantro, organic cilantro, and parsley. So about half and half, cilantro and parsley, some pine nuts or some nut that you choose, and basil to taste. You're going to have an extremely healthy pesto that you can put on eggs, vegetables, chicken, fish, vegetarian meals, all kinds of things. And I'd highly recommend you experiment with different parts of this to make the best tasting pesto you can make. Okay, let's talk about other things that might be helpful for the brain. Quercetin. Quercetin may be able to improve nerve or neuronal viability as neurons are always sort of under stress. It might increase mitochondrial function, and it might even decrease brain edema and oxidative damage. So how do you get quercetin? Believe it or not, the highest food product with quercetin is capers. So start putting capers on things, but also red onions and apples. And I do think it's a good idea. Organic apple a day is a very good idea for almost every health condition, especially gastrointestinal conditions and now brain conditions. Okay, something else, rosemary. It's got carnosic acid, and it can activate NRF2. It's also neuroprotective in the brain. It's got some cancer protection features as well. So you can grind up the herb. When you get it, it's sort of like almost like little sticks. Grind it up, put it on a lot of different things. You can also get a rosemary tincture and add it to your water each day. That can be very beneficial for the brain. Cook with it. Just try to get a lot of rosemary in. Okay, and protein at every meal is a good idea, but the protein's got to be really clean. It's got to be, organic, and then, for the meat, grass-fed, grass-finished. For the chicken, free-range organic feed. And remember, you don't want to eat too much fish. And if you do, you got to probably take chlorella with it because some of the fish is loaded with mercury. So if you're going to eat fish, eat smaller fish. Okay. Now, I want to talk about this browned protein things or brown anything. If you like toast too much, or you make something brown, or you fry the eggs too much, or you're making scrambled eggs and they turn brown, what happens? You get advanced glycosylated end products, AGEs, it's called. There's receptors for AGEs, and then that can stimulate a lot of inflammation and even oxidative stress in the brain. So limit chips, limit crackers, limit toast, limit things that are going to be browned, and just lightly do your eggs and your proteins. Okay. Now, there's another thing to limit in your diet, which is acrylamide. Acrylamide it's a neurotoxin. It damages the brain, and it gets created in potato chips, where oils get heated over and over again, French fries, and also in coffee. Did you know that most coffee has acrylamide in it? So you like to find a low acrylamide coffee. And one thing I'm going to recommend to you is there's mainly one company that I'm aware of that actually checks its coffee and beans for acrylamide and has some low acrylamide coffee beans. And that's Purity. So Purity Coffee, and it's on our affiliate website. I would suggest if you don't want to have acrylamide every day, but you like drinking coffee, grind the Purity beans. You're going to get low acrylamide coffee in general, and you're going to get no mold. because you want to limit mold in your food because mold biotoxins can damage the brain. Okay. Now, we also want flavonoids. Things that are high in flavonoids are good for the brain, like blueberries, onions, apples, strawberries, all good for the brain. What about a ketogenic diet? Yes, it's very good for the brain. That means a very oil-based diet, very low in starch, and definitely has protein, but very low in sugars too. It is a good idea. It's just very difficult to do. And if you really want to heal the brain of certain things, like someone has seizures, or new onset seizures, a ketogenic diet is probably a good idea. I don't think it's practical to eat a ketogenic diet for the long term, but for the short term, it's not a bad idea. Now, I'm going to give you a few other ideas, and I have an amazing handout that you can get if you send us your email on the Healthy Brain Diet. And it's organized in terms of the green categories, what you want to emphasize, in the red. Okay, so remember I said diet should be low in foods that contain neurotoxins like heavy metals. That should be low in chocolate, low in seafood, especially big fish like tuna and swordfish, halibut, etc. And eat vegetables from the cruciferous family that help you detoxify. Okay, and there are things like bok choy, broccoli, broccolini, broccoli sprouts, watercress, arugula. These all help you detoxify. Avoid all genetically modified things. Also, stay low in bisphenol A. So if you're going to eat something from a can, make sure the can says not lined with BPA. Okay, and then avoid things in plastics when you go to the grocery store. Ask for paper bags. Very, very important. Okay. Now, try to maintain a normal blood sugar. What does that mean? Try not to eat things with high amounts of sugar. Don't eat things with more than 8 to 9 grams of sugar per serving. Avoiding a lot of starchy foods, potatoes, rice, pasta, cookies, sweets. Just not a good idea. Okay, now what else, especially if you're trying to heal a concussion, besides being gluten-free and dairy-free, there are some other foods that the immune system might get mistaken for other things that go after the brain. And so these would be avoid spinach, tomatoes, soy, and corn during the time you're eating a special diet to keep your brain sharp or heal the brain. Now, there are some people that need to minimize lectins. Lectins are certain things in plant-based foods. And so I would say if you want to avoid lectins, search for a low lectin diet and try it for 3 to 4 weeks. There's no harm. It just limits what you're choosing. Okay. I already talked to you about choline. And one of the other things that helps with choline, cauliflower and asparagus. And let's see if there's anything else I want to tell you about. Improving microbiome diversity. So it is important to eat a lot of different vegetables and vegetable-based fibers. They increase butyrate, and having a gut that has a lot of microbiome diversity is very important for the brain, actually. So foods with fibers, very important. And I do like the apples and the vegetable-based fibers, but you can use a fiber supplement if you actually, have to have a supplement for that. I think we talked about the brain-based smoothie. For the liquid, you could use pomegranate juice a little bit. You could use filtered water. You're not going to use organic dairy. And for the protein, you could use an organic hemp or organic pea protein. I always recommend using leucine, which is a branched chain amino acid, to help maintain muscle mass on the body. More muscle means better blood sugar regulation. That is very good for the brain. So you also got to be careful when you eat out, because it's very hard to eat out with all these things in mind. Another thing is avoid MSG in your foods. Do a search for hidden MSG in foods, and you're going to find it all in lots of different ingredients. And you want to avoid excitotoxins like aspartame. Don't chew gum with aspartame. Don't eat anything that has aspartame in it. It will be an excitotoxin. And you can listen to our concussion episode to learn about excitotoxins. So, intermittent fasting can be okay during this time period. I don't recommend it initially, especially when the brain is like going through its mitochondrial crisis. But eventually, intermittent fasting can be okay unless you tend to have hypoglycemia. Then I would not recommend it. Anyway, I hope you really learned a lot about how to keep your brain sharp by how you eat. And don't forget to check our affiliate page. We've got all kinds of brain-based supplements on our affiliate page, and we've got really good products for EMF protection and all kinds of supplements. And on the doctor's supplement store, DSS, we've got brain-based supplement protocols. But if you do want this actual dietary handout that's very well organized with the red, don't eat it, the green, do eat it, send us your email. And from this podcast, send us your email and we'll email you a copy of the brain-based diet. And I look forward to teaching you more in further episodes.